Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. So it actually did dry out this evening. So I am starting my oat harvest. So 7 o'clock on the server. So we've got several hours that we can work. See how late we'll go. Oops. Forgot I had the corn header there, that's not good. Reposition that later. It's not, I can't get clear of this building. Goodness gracious, what is happening? Guess I don't have a choice. Pick that up later, I guess. Alright. So I'm gonna go head up to 97 and 98. Knock that out first, so that I'm near the silo and I can easily move the truck around and keep things going as quick as possible. The hope is then that the cotton pops shortly, but for me to be able to work that, I need to have the oats done, so I'm glad I can get this going today, still in midsummer, where it really seemed like it was going to be a wash per the weather. So it's still, yeah, see, it changed to positive drying, so that makes sense. So glad to see it worked out that way. Only bad thing is it probably meant I could have been on earlier today, but I was so convinced it wasn't going to work, as were all of us, that I was expecting when I checked this evening that it would still tell me no. So I'm the only one on the server right now, but I did let the other FMs know if they're interested. It's dry. So we'll see if we have anyone join, but several of the folks are over in Europe, and at this point it's basically midnight or later there, so might be past time when they're going to be interested in getting on, but at least they know. So nice thing with my header again is I don't have a header trailer, so I literally disconnect and then go get the header on the harvester and go, and I don't have anything laying around in the way or anything else, so much prefer this versus what I was doing when I was helping Sweden, having to play with the other trailer. So folded up the header, folding up the harvester. Why is it not moving forward? Something was stuck, but don't know what. Okay, let's see where we line up here. Yeah, that's too far over. I may end up just cutting into the center at some point, because again, I want to be able to just quickly get to sorry, just trying to get this thing to move, but because I was in the ditch and the header was down, it was a little stuck. So I'm going to disable the straw swath, or I think that just enabled it. But yes, I am not going to attempt to pick up the straw with this. It's just too much. It's tempting. It's hard to leave money on the field, basically, where I know I could bail and make more, but I know I'll be cursing myself later, so I'm gonna make the proper call and just be happy I can get my oats off the field and get the cotton off the field and call that a victory. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, so I'm back here. It was just honestly because I wasn't thinking I was going to be doing anything today. I was actually just finishing up my dinner while I kept running along. But at this point, you can see I've gone down and over in the headland a little bit, and I've cleared out enough that I can now get to my silo. And so what the plan is going to be is probably just run the harvester to the silo. If that turns out that it just takes too long, I'll do something else. You know, I'll go get the truck. But right now I don't have the tractor up here, and I should be able to just dump things in. So I started with about 21,000 of oats in the silo, which was part of why of the grains or the cereal I picked oats, because I already had oats in the silo. So you can see on the board there's one line with a value. That's the oats line. So I'll keep doing that. Again, we have a possibility that we're going to exceed the capacity, but as I've talked with everybody, I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen. So at this point, I think I'm going to cut the middle up here, go across, and just basically keep kind of working around the silo here, and just keep plugging away. So that's the plan. Again, very excited to be back on the farm on FS. Whoa, darn it. Not excited enough to pay attention and not destroy my crop. So, forgot I had picked up the header to just make sure I could get in and not damage the crop as I was running over to the silo, but probably wasn't that much. It might have been 10 or 15 liters that I'll take out with that. We obviously also have the little bit where Swede's mower got away from him and cut into this field, so we'll be doing that at some point shortly. So we've got a little bit of crop here and there, and it's not uncommon, certainly in any harvest, to lose a bit. Sometimes you've got terrain differences that the header won't follow, and you lose some crop there as it just basically stops harvesting. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here, and then I'm going to actually come down on the right side there, the other side, to just fully give myself all the maneuvering room I need so that I don't have to angle the pipe coming up to the silo, because that'll just make it much simpler at that point. I can just swing around, extend the pipe fully, and it won't take time then to extend it and come back and angle it. And I'll certainly be able to at least come down that way, but this will be a little bit of a, not going to be sloppy, because obviously I'm harvesting. It doesn't really honestly matter what order I go in, but it's not going to be as methodical as I normally would, where I'll just go across the field row by row and get things done. And obviously I've only cut part of the headland. I'll end up having to cut the rest of the headland when I get over there, but there's really not a but. I'm just trying to make more to talk about than there is, and there really isn't. It's pretty simple. I'm just basically trying to do this as efficiently as I can, with even eliminating the truck, at least on 97. I don't think it's going to make sense on 98, although it may, because if I recall, we did oats as kind of the test crop the one year when I was testing the weeding and so forth, and I think that was one harvester worth on that field with oats, so I think it'll actually be okay, and I won't have to bring a truck over. So maybe I'll just get 97 and 98 done with the harvester just running over to the silo directly. So the challenge will be here that go to the map and the growth stages. Yeah, the cotton's still very early. I would say it's honestly the first growth stage, which should likely make sense. So even if I go past midnight today and it changes, it's not like it's going to be ready. It's just sometimes it does move multiple growth stages at a time. If I go to my crop calendar, I can't pull cotton out until, did I miss it? There it is. So it certainly would be at least 2 days, so first day of autumn. And I think that's really what I'm hoping for, because right now, unless the forecast has changed, so today is Sunday, Monday will be late summer, Tuesday will be autumn 1, so we're still clear, but then we have a 50 and a 60% chance on what is autumn 2 and 3. And then the likelihood, if autumn 2 and 3 are wet and I can't harvest, that winter 1 will get dry enough is, I'm not going to count on it, is basically it. And even if I do, I think I'm going to be hard pressed to get that cotton done in a day, unless I get some help, which I've had a couple of the FMs volunteer, but it's just a question of, are we going to be on at similar times? Because I can lease a second cotton harvester and at least have them run the field. So, well, as we get closer and we see when things are going to go, I'll start talking to the ones that have expressed interest. And I've got what's called a lease voucher, which is a FSN feature as well, that you can get as prizes, or I think I got some of them just for donating and so forth. So I've got a lease voucher where I can lease a piece of equipment for 3 days, basically for the voucher. So in essence, at no cost, but obviously, you know, I'm using it for that, so there's somewhat of a cost, but I'm not expending actual cash to rent the harvester at this point, and I've never used lease vouchers before, so they're just sitting there, and this would absolutely be a great time to do it, because my other alternative would be to put out a contract, which I'd probably still need to lease a harvester anyway. These keys are just not working properly today. I had put that header down, but I could tell it was still up in the air, so thank goodness I double checked. But we'll get a little closer here. Why is it stopping? I don't understand. Am I getting lag? No. What is happening? I don't understand. There's not usually any kind of unevenness in the field that it catches on there. I don't understand why it did that. But in any event, I'll get a little further along, and probably at 97 I'm going to start cutting out of the field. And hopefully I won't, yeah, I'll be okay. I just don't want to end up full and then running over crop right at the end there. No reason to push it. I'm right here, so. So my big question on the curved that's that. Remember when I was doing the contract, I was talking about the curved output from the header, and mine is not, but I'm trying to figure out, I think I can move that end piece somehow. I just trying to figure out if I can do it with keys, because I think it was bent down more. Yeah, because that does that. Moves it in and out, so that isn't what it is. I don't know, I'll play with it, but I'm thinking that's all it was if you push that spigot down more, it curves it a bit. I think all I'm doing is moving the arm in and out. Now it's like a curiosity thing, because I'm sure I can do something to move that. I just can't find the keys. Maybe I'll pull up the help menu once I get going, and give us something to do while we're letting the harvester do its thing. And I pushed, oh, I know why, because now I'm on my harvester. I'm like, I pushed V and it's not lowering again, but that would be because I'm on the harvester. So that's the danger again, is being careful to not run over the crops. Alright, so let me pull this up, change to that, pipe in. Because, yeah, I think, yeah, that just changes the header itself. You can see the headers raising and lowering. That does the arm sideways, so that's not the rotation that I would expect, but so there is something that'll control that, but I may not have things mapped. It might be what's going on there. So maybe I'll play around with it at some point and try to figure it out, but I'm not really going to worry about it now. It just was more a curiosity type thing of if I get that curved output, because as I was talking about in the video where I was contracting, I'm like, I'm not aware of that always being the case. I get it curves on the way out, but it doesn't stay in a curved arc. But I think if I change that angle of attack on the output cone, is what I'll call it, I think then maybe I could recreate that, because I do believe that was turned down more on Sears harvester that I was using. So we're about 30 minutes in from when I signed on here initially to see that I could harvest, and we're not very far, as you can tell. So as I was chatting with the other FMs today, I'm thinking we're looking at 12 to 14 hours of harvest time. So I think even if I stay on incredibly late today, I'll make progress, obviously, but I'm not going to get anywhere near being done. Which I think will be alright, because I'm assuming from what I was looking at the calendar, well, I know for certain, like, the cotton won't come up tomorrow, so, because it's not in the harvest window. So I'll have tomorrow to get the oats off the field too, so I don't think I'm going to push tonight ridiculously long. There are definitely times on FSN that I have gone ahead and played into the wee hours of the morning, which will be 2, 3 a.m. Eastern time here. I usually will not go anywhere past 3 a.m. because the servers reboot between 3 and 4 a.m. Eastern time. And if you happen to continue past the save, which there's no set time for the save. You're just kind of watching for a slight hesitation at some point that happens somewhere near the top of the hour usually to determine when your server saves. And anything you do after the save, when it reboots, you basically have to redo, because when it comes back up, it's at the save point that it had, and it won't have saved before it resets again. So that's one of the things that people who play at that time, because obviously, once again, if you're in another time zone, like if you're in Europe, 3 or 4 a.m. here is 8 or 9 a.m. in Europe, so it's, or in the, you know, in the main parts of Europe that the folks, at least that I'm normally playing with, are in Farming Simulator from. So it's usually 5-6 hours ahead of Eastern time, and they certainly could be up for playing in the morning. So there are people who have lost significant amounts of work, because if your server happens to be later in the reboot cycle and also saves at, you know, say 40 minutes past the hour or something, and then you work till 3:40 and the server reboots, like, you could literally lose a full hour. So that's a lot of time to then have to redo. But we did have one incident at one point with our server where we lost basically the whole day. We lost 12 to 14 hours. Like, somehow the server reset and froze, and they had to go back to an old save, and it was like the save that they were bringing up, that's what time it was on the server, and all of our work that day, which did happen to be a harvest day, we had to redo. So that was like doing 2 harvests that year. It was tough. So I think I had just spent 8 or 9 hours on the server, and then we had the problem, and then suddenly it was like, we've got to do this all again. So that was pretty painful, but there wasn't really much we could do about it other than suck it up and make the best of it. So I think I was able to redo everything, but definitely ended up playing a lot more FSN than I thought. I think it may actually be on one of the videos, because I think it may have happened once I've been putting my FSN work on YouTube. So yeah, this is where it gets a little interesting, because normally I'd be pulling up a truck here and then kind of continuing, but since I'm going to go ahead and just drive over, I'm not doing that. And I'm still not sure that this isn't worth doing at this point. Obviously, I'm not going to drive the harvester up from my southerly fields, but for now, by the time I tab over to the truck and then drive it over, line it up, I don't know that that's any faster than the time it just took me to drive this harvester over here. So I think right now this is a decent enough plan. I think if I had a much more higher yielding crop, I might rethink that, but yeah, looking at that angle, like if I'm pouring into a truck, it's definitely not curving back. I mean, it's honestly not curving back at any point. So the output I was getting from Sears's harvester is not one that I'm clearly going to get in the current setup from mine. But at this point, we've got 2 harvesters worth. So about 44,000, 46,000 liters in here. So it's all good fun and good interest to see. Am I going to exceed the capacity, and how much time is this really going to take? So at this point, we'll start up here. And we'll also get that front middle section in front of the house done at some point. That'll probably be the next point that I head to after I fill the harvester this time. So yeah, it looks like if I look at that mini map inset, I'm getting about 100% yield, which is, I think, about right. I think I could have gotten 114 if I hadn't. Well, actually, I'm not sure. Let me go to the crop rotation. Cotton, wheat. Yeah, in theory, it would have been 114. But I think because I went fallow, I think it resets things. And then I think you get like 108 or something instead. So it's not that much of a difference, but it is a difference. So at this point I don't have a whole lot more to say, so I'm going to just pop in and out as it makes sense. And we'll see you when we see you. I finished up 97 and 98, and now I'm on my way to the fields down near my home parcel. So I've got the 5 fields down here. So I will continue to plug away at those. At this point, I'm also just going to go ahead and get the trailers connected and bring them down, because obviously I'm not going to run things up to the silo with the harvester. So I'm going to get that all staged and start working likely on 89 and then just move over across the way until I'm done with 85, which once again will likely not be until tomorrow. So if I do another time lapse, we may have our second appearance of the Franken lapse, where things really shift within the same time lapse, but I think it's probably more likely that I'm jump cutting these videos, because time-lapsing 12 to 14 hours of harvesting is still going to be hours of video that probably no one's going to watch. So anyway, that is where we are at, and we'll keep going. So I forgot that I had not cleaned things up from my cotton work earlier today. So the truck's actually up here on field 8. It's actually good that I popped in to do this work, or I would have had a truck sitting in the middle of second stage cotton and I would have destroyed crops getting it out. So small blessings again of timing. I had intended to come back in and clean things up sometime in the afternoon, but then got hung up, or not hung up, but got involved in real life stuff, and then didn't get pulled back in till later. So I will end up leaving the tanker down here somewhere and just grabbing the trailer, so it actually works out. I don't know about better, but it's better because I'm cleaning up in the process. I've gotten my trailer back to my fields instead of having it there where I'm not going to need it again. And I can then go ahead and, oops, didn't quite turn enough, but I think I'm trying to rethink how I'm going to store things here, because obviously I don't want to create the situation I did where I had to drive over the crops with this trailer before. And so this way I can pull out, turn around, or once I have this trailer out of the way, I can use the opening between the house. It was just because this trailer was sticking out that made it a little more challenging to back in, but normally I'll have this trailer stored down by field 30. So this I need to connect up here, get the hoses attached, or I won't be able to drive full speed. But once again, since I harvested, I don't have to be quite as careful getting out of here. Can cut the corner of the field and move along. But yeah, otherwise I would have been coming from 30 up here to 97 and then back down to 30, where this way came from 8 to 97 and going to 30, so it feels less of a I'm just driving to get the trailer, and more, hey, I did a put away and now I've simply switched equipment to what I need now. So obviously I still do have the tractor and the spreader down at 8, which will need to get moved in the next period of time. I was going to say the next few days. I assume it certainly will be, but this is my reality, at least. I assume it's probably anybody's reality who's really running at capacity in their FSN environment. Is even simple things like taking 5 or 10 minutes to run that tractor back here. It's one of those, like, I'll just do it when I have extra time, because, you know, if I need to do it in the winter, I can do it. And it's not like it's going to hurt anything there. Technically, those fields are quote-unquote mine for the season. So the one, you know, FSN rule is kind of, don't just leave equipment parked all over the map. Leave it near your fields. But so even though it's not actually my field, I'm using it as if it's mine. So, but the reality is I'll probably end up moving it before the winter. So I also don't feel like I'm going to leave it there for a week of real time, but you just never know. But my guess is I'll get this harvest done relatively soon. I do have to repair the harvester and the header, because at this point I am getting to the point of maintenance that it's going to start to impact performance. So definitely, if I do get below 6% or 6%, 6 miles per hour on my movements here, I will end up running immediately over to the farm and getting that. But at this point, you know, I'm going to go ahead and try to get this completed. What is happening? Is it stuck again on some magic piece of ground? So I just hit V twice really quick when that happens, just to basically bounce the header, and sometimes usually that's enough to get you clear of whatever it's theoretically hung up on. And that's where I'm running into a little bit of a state of confusion, is like, is the harvester having a hard time because I need maintenance, or is it having a hard time because it's really stuck on something? And usually if it needs maintenance, it's not moving at 0. So that's kind of what led me to believe it had to be just a blockage. But yes, I had noticed the maintenance as I was basically getting ready to start up on the fields, and had decided, you know what, I'll just deal with it when I come down here, because I knew it wouldn't get bad enough, more than likely, until I was at least in the vicinity here where I have my workshop. So, but my original intent, which I had forgotten about, because it's been, what, about 2 hours now that I've been harvesting. My original intent was, when I came down here, to head straight over and repair and then come and do the fields. But in the haste, as I was talking about, of even not moving the tractor for 10 minutes, that same haste that drives us in FSN all the time, of just stay focused on the immediate task at hand of what needs to get done and is time bound, which in this case is harvesting, because I can't harvest in the rain. So when I have a period of dryness, I need to maximize any of the time I'm online to be pulling crop off the field. Everything else is a distraction I can't really afford. Because, you know, if I burn a half an hour repositioning equipment, repairing equipment, doing things, you know, that half an hour is a difference of a quarter of one of these fields at minimum, which is not insubstantial. It's going to be 40,000 liters probably of crop, which is going to be a few $1,000s in actual money, where those other things are not generating income for me. So once again, I'm fairly certain, I'm going to even go ahead and say 100% certain, that if I do any time lapse after this, assuming I've been doing any anyway, it's not going to be for much longer, because time lapse of watching basically a flashlight move through the dark, which is what this is going to look like soon, is even less compelling video than 2 hours of time lapse would be if I time lapse the entire harvest. So I don't know. Like I said, I really look forward to feedback from folks, because I'd love to hear what these FSN videos, like what format is fun to watch for you guys. Because right now, without any feedback, I'm just kind of trying things and trying to determine, like, I think I would like this if I was watching it, and that's where all this feedback is coming from me, is I might turn on, if someone had 2 hours of time lapse of harvesting a crop, I might leave it running in the background on this, you know, on my laptop on the side, but I'm not going to sit there in intense focus watching it and listening to the music that's playing with it. So I'm assuming, therefore, I have no viewers that would do that either. So putting out that kind of a video, taking the time to upload it, you know, all of that, like all the time to put it together, render it, save it up to YouTube, is hours and hours of time that I don't feel I need to spend, because I don't think anyone would watch it. And so until I start seeing view times on the videos, or if I put out an hour-long video and I'm getting 50 minutes of view time on it, then I think I have an answer. But right now I'm getting a few minutes of view time on a video, which I think is pretty typical for YouTube. So I'm sure people are just jumping around trying to find the pieces they want to hear and not watching the stuff in between, which I guess makes me wonder. And what I'd like feedback on is if you'd literally just prefer 5-minute videos, because that's literally all you want to watch, and you want to hear, okay, what are you working on today? And then at the end come back and tell me if anything interesting happened. But I don't care if I see it or not, because I'm not going to watch it in the center anyway. That makes things easier for me as a content producer, but then I also see other YouTube channels that do Let's Plays, and you know, they'll put out 30-minute videos, and what I don't know is, are people really watching 30 minutes, or are those videos also getting 5 minutes of view time per viewer? So perhaps they're in the same boat, where they're trying to hit that sweet spot of 30 minutes, and nobody's watching 30 minutes anyway. But so sorry for that little swirl of mouse motion there. That was totally useless. Whoops. Before I run over the crop, I need to stop. Alright. So anyway, I think you get my point. Let me know what you'd like to see. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep kind of putting different things out there as I think of them, to hopefully try to determine with the people that are watching what works better, by seeing what people spend more time on. But it would be much easier, rather than trying to read your minds remotely, for you to speak your mind in text in the comments below and let me know with 100% certainty what you'd like to see as I do these, because the reality of this series is I am on doing these tasks across hundreds of acres of fields, and that by the nature of FSN just takes a lot of time. So it's different than a typical Let's Play where I can control how much land I have and can focus more around producing short little videos because I own 2 fields or something. But if I'm trying to own a lot of fields, I can't do a video in 30 minutes of just continuous work unless I leave substantial parts out, or unless I just jump cut all over the place, and I'm not sure how much fun that is to follow. To me it seems disjointed, which is why I struggle with, is just jump cutting from thing to thing worth it, especially since that thing is still the same task, just on a different field. And I'll be flat out up front. I do what I do on FSN for a reason. I don't do different crops on every field, because the logistics then of selling those crops create a situation where I've now got to deal with 5 different sell chains. So in the resource exchange, you know, I'd have to issue 5 contracts, I'd have to do whatever, and it just creates a reality that once again doesn't work very well even in FSN, because there aren't contractors per se that are necessarily going to easily jump in and grab 10 contracts for me, because I decided to do, you know, in this case I'm renting, you know, I have 11 fields. If I said, hey, I'm going to do a different crop on each field, at the end of the season I've got 11 crops to dispose of. And while that might be interesting and fun to watch on a video, it's just not what this series is going to be, because that doesn't make sense in the gameplay for FSN, at least not for me. There may be some people on FSN that enjoy that because they want variety, but I'm perfectly fine with throwing oats on the field and acting like a real farmer who would do exactly the same thing, is find their crop rotation and just repeat it over and over and over, and just blanket their fields with hundreds of acres, as real folks do. Again, I'm a fan, and I watch the Millennial Farmer, and you know, I think they've got 500 plus acres, and all they ever plant on it is soybeans and corn. But you know, like I said, I also do realize it's a little more entertaining to watch that, because other things happen, like breakdowns and just people showing up in trucks and dogs running around and whimpering when equipment is started and whatever, that don't happen in Farming Simulator. So I'm doing what I can to make them as interesting as I can, but my final plea again is, give me some ideas of what you find interesting, and I'll be happy to try to deliver those in any way I can. I enjoy the editing, video editing, and this and that, and so I've gotten much better at it than even a month and a half ago with adding things in, so I'm pretty comfortable I can probably do what most people would want done. I just need to know what that is. So I'm done talking. I'll keep on harvesting. I'm back here in the morning, ready to kick off the day and continue on. Need to reconnect all my equipment. Okay, what else am I missing? Is the other... Oh, I think the... No? Okay, yeah. The hoses were not ready to go. So I'll also have to reset the GPS as I go forward. So this is always a trick after you've stopped a session in FSN, is just making sure everything is, whoops, and with the combine it's going to have done the offset, so always have to remember that. I think the offset, it ended up part of where we were at. Whoops, goodness gracious. It's still too early for me. Alright, going on again, getting ready to get this banged out. So I've got about 2 hours of time to plug away at this morning. We'll see how far I get, and I'll have to take a break, so you'll either see or hear about it at the end, or see it as you watch the time lapse go by. So I will talk to you in a bit as we continue to do this. I guess before I bounce off, just a bit of context and where we're at. I'm above 600,000 in the silo already, but once again, I'm certainly past the halfway point of the field, so I don't think we're in any danger of overflowing the silo of the 1.2 million that I've got available in storage. So I think we'll be good, and we'll go from there. And then obviously when we're done, it just becomes a question of, do I immediately do something to sell the crop, or do I let it sit for a bit and try to maximize my pricing? Because I know right now, heading into autumn, is going to be the cheapest portion of oats for exactly what's happening here, just as it does in standard farming, because everybody's harvesting oats because it just ripened and was ready to be reaped. So there's a glut of supply. So that's part of what I'm looking at, but that's the situation, and we should be fine. Land continues to come up for sale. I just listed another auction, 73.74, all the way over on the east side by Fire is up. Again, way too far over. It's in essence very close to on the way to the store for me, and would be a challenge. Well, it would be an insane challenge. It's just a long way. Unless I built another silo complex and whatever over there, it just wouldn't make sense, plus the time. But enough about that. See you in a bit. Alright, so I'm getting down here to the last piece of the field. So we're going to get this picked up. I've had a few areas that have died off here. You can see them spread around the map. We've got another one here. Again, just a feature that occurs with seasons periodically, where you'll have crops that either don't germinate or wither in patches on the field. So it honestly wasn't too bad. I've certainly seen years where I've had much worse. But we should, I think this is going to be more than will fit in the truck. So I'm going to have to run the truck up a couple times to finish things up. But I'm going to go ahead and turn the harvester off because we are getting low on gas as well. contrary to what I had said, I did not go ahead and run the harvester at any point over to get repaired, so we're definitely going to do that when we put it away, because it's pretty beat up after doing 7 fields of oats, on top of being a little worn when we started. Well, more than a little worn, I think it was around 20%, but I think we're pressing on to 50% now, and yeah, I can only fit about 3,000 in here, so I'm going to have to come back one more time to finish it off. But I am pleased with the progress I've made here, because I was really initially, just a few days ago, expecting that I wouldn't even be able to start the harvest until this morning, which would mean, you know, I'd still be right in the middle of a lot of that. So at this point, just to get some perspective, it actually worked pretty quickly, I would say, because I spent about 6 hours last night, and then about 2.5 hours this morning, so that gets us to 8.5 hours, and then we've done about 45 more minutes, so, you know, let's round it and say another hour. So we've got 9.5 hours to actually get this harvested. So, better than I expected, but we certainly have a pretty tedious cotton harvest ahead of us. But it's you know, a job we've decided we're going to do, and it will be fine, but it will certainly be long, because I don't have a, what I think is a, 18-meter header, I think is what I have on the, or maybe a 15-meter header. Either way, I mean, it's 45 feet is what the draper is. So, and if I recall, I think the harvester's literally 3 meters. So I think it's, you know, 5. I'd have to make 5 passes of the field to do what I can do in 1 pass in the standard harvester, and that's just the nature of cotton and, honestly, root crops. So both of these machines that I have parked in front of my house, that every morning I get to wake up and look out the windows and say, hey, I've got this great equipment on this farm. But either one of those are very small working with, and just the very nature of how that all functions per the, you know, reality of time. I've tried to change the back end. I don't think it actually physically dumps any less, but I keep trying to get it to not do the grain door on the back. But obviously it's choosing to ignore me. And like I said, I don't know that it goes really any slower, because both of the tanks are faster, or are done at the same time, so it doesn't really matter. But let me go get that last piece. I'm really pleased with kind of how my yard looks here with the silos. It fits well. It moved things along pretty well. So yeah, there's that Rubicon sprayer across the way that you can see. Swede got that delivered, I think, yesterday or this morning. So he's pretty excited. He spent some money on that so he can do some spraying, and I think he was sharing that it moves along at, you know, 25 miles per hour or something. So it's definitely clips along, and he'll be able to get his spraying done very quickly. I think I've looked at those, though. I think they're 400, 500,000, so I do have the money at this point. I know when I was looking at my sprayer is when I would have looked at those, and I just determined the trade-off between cost and so forth was so substantial that I determined I wasn't going to wait for the Rubicon to come available. But maybe one of these days I'll I'll change my mind, but I think it goes pretty quickly with the sprayer I have anyway, and I spent significantly less money, but I suppose over time, if I'm being realistic, you know, yes, maybe I saved $300,000, but the more years go by, you know, invariably, I would be covering fields in X amount of time faster each and every harvest, because I'd be using the sprayer for the herbicide at least, and might even put liquid fert on at some point. But I don't know, I'd have to really do some number crunching to determine what it would really take to... Is it because I shut it off, or is it because I'm really not quite lined up? I might not be quite lined up. Let me move the arm back a bit. Yep, that's what it is. So I was going to say, I don't recall ever having a problem emptying a harvester. I guess let me disconnect my PTO here. Just kind of get my job ready. Unfold the harvester header, and then I can at least use this time productively so that I'm ready to go. And we're all set with that so that I can get back and move that. And I intentionally didn't disconnect it from the harvester, because what just happened I was worried about is, yeah, I was rolling over that arm, and I'm sure if I had disconnected, it would have twisted that header all over the place and just made it more work to connect up to later. But, so we've got another almost 11,000 liters here. So we'll get up there and we'll see what our final result is off of 7 fields, which are basically about 150, 160 acres is what my farming land is here at this point. I will say, I'm always pleased with where I ended up picking a map, because I would think certainly by now, you know, this is, granted I didn't run anything last year, but this is my 14th year on the server. So, you know, again, 13 years active. I would think if I'd be getting bored of a map, it would certainly have happened probably many years ago. But I just love this map. I think there's just a lot of beauty to it, and just a lot of variation, so that I can feel like I'm experiencing kind of different environments and so forth, even though I'm all on the same map, which I know, working other maps just for 2 or 3 years as a contractor, I never felt that way. I was, you know, within a couple of years was like, yeah, I know I wouldn't enjoy it here, because I'm already wanting to get off this map here and so forth. Yeah, that has a grain door too, so I mean, I did pull up the menu. There we go. Now it does show grain door, so it didn't show me the pieces before, because like here, if I go back, you can see, now I guess it does say tip side back, but so in this case I think I'm good. I'm gonna run this back down to my storage space near 30, so we're gonna basically do our cleanup, because at this point, well, you know, before I do that with this, let me run on over. What have we got here? I don't think we quite got to 1 million. Let me hide that away. Alright, about 950,000 of oats. So, certainly, you know, a good amount. Let's keep in mind we had 21,000 and change in there already, so we've only got like about 925,000 off the fields, but certainly respectable. Okay, so I'm checking on oats in the direct sell and the resource market. So let's see, I was just kind of put in a quantity of 25,000. So 616 per thousand, which is honestly more than I've made on my other crops. Like I'm selling my coffee for 550. So these oats are better. Now, again, I have a little bit more coffee because off of 5 fields, because that year I had field 85 and 86 that I just finished off with tobacco and cotton. So I only had 5 fields and I had 1.1 million in coffee. So I certainly would have probably been, 200, 300,000 more easily off of those 3 fields. So I would have had, another 500,000 or so in yield at $65 less. So if I go to the resource exchange, it's supposed to be snowballs, but I collected a pumpkin, but yeah, maybe something's off. Because it's telling me I should be collecting snowballs, but it's giving me a pumpkin. So anyway, we're in Baku. Oh, our poppies did sell. I can take a look at that later. So I still have 340,000 of my 1.1 million of coffee to go. So I think in my last video I had shown that I had basically, I think still around 500,000 or something, or 600,000, and so I've sold another 200,000 liters in a day, which is awesome. But anyway, if I change this now to oats and then filter, okay, 733. And so realistically, to get this to sell, I would probably list it at 725. So I'd still get over 100 extra per liter, which I'm probably going to do the math wrong, but I think that would be basically $90,000 difference in my total profit off of this. And if I go back here in game, I can sell oats for substantially less again. So this is what I typically see, where I'm usually a couple hundred more doing something through the FSN processes than I would be selling in-game. So you tend to have the situation like Swede had when he was desperately trying to get money for the haylofts occurring, where then you might sell in-game because you just want cash in here, where otherwise you're going to wait 2, 3, maybe 4 real days between the listing of the contract, getting someone to take it, and then putting in your request to transfer money, and then having that transfer take place before you see money in game. So I mean, if you're going to be super conservative, you probably would just say you're not going to see money in here from anything outside in less than a week. And that would certainly probably cover most contingencies. But right now, contract pickup is running a lot slower, frankly, because we all think people are really, who are playing in-game, are trying to play on the FS22 servers, or are just waiting for the FS22 servers to show up, and in the interim are getting familiar with the game in single player, and there are just not as many people spending time on the FS19 servers. So I've had one FM here who's put out an export contract and it's expired twice, and I think they have to sit out there for at least 24 hours, if not 48, before they expire. So he lost several days just waiting for the contract to be fulfilled. So I've got nothing else I need to do today, and honestly, let me check one more thing. Let me go here and look at oats. Yeah, 639. So the highest it typically has gotten in game is still less than the 725 I can sell, direct sell. So, or not direct sell, resource exchange. So before I put this truck back, since I basically am done for the day, I am now going to start transferring all of this oat to the silo, or yeah, to the custom silo next door basically, and get that to my warehouse and then start selling that along with the coffee, which is kind of typical of the process. It just tends to work out that way. And you know, unlike maybe a different Let's Play that I'd be doing, where I'd just be doing things and saying, hey, I'm going to perform a different activity just because a lot of FSN just happens to go with reality, which is, why would I sell my crop for anything less than the maximum I can get at any point in time? It just wouldn't make sense if I'm truly running a farm. So that's what I tend to do in FSN, because at the end of the day, it's still all about having money to make decisions and do things. So exactly what allowed me to take the lease and get Sears Fields to do some extra stuff this year, that came about because of choices I made in previous years to sell crop the way I did, that let that money be there for me to just seize the opportunity, rather than what everybody does at the start of any kind of a series in FSN, where you're low on cash and you can't buy the equipment you want. You know, I'm certainly in a great spot at this point where there's not much, okay, well, there's frankly nothing I think that I couldn't do other than just timing of things. So once again, if I needed to do something in game where I needed $2 million and I had to do it by tomorrow, like I couldn't do that, because like unless I sold these oats, maybe I could get, no, I wouldn't get that much money with what I have. But you kind of understand, is I'm limited because of the logistics of getting financial transfers done, not because of finances, because I'm nearly at, I've got 4 banks at this point that are maxed out at in what I can earn interest. So I'm in the 900,000 level basically across 4 banks, which basically is about 3.6 million or more. And then I've obviously got this crop that's going to generate more money. I've got the 350,000 in coffee that's still generating more money. So I would say easily at this point I've got $4 million that I'm going to have cleared once this crop processes. And so there's not a whole lot that I wouldn't be able to do. I mean, I could buy multiple parcels of land. I could buy tons of additional equipment if I wanted to. So I am not limited in my choices here. It's just more, what do I choose to keep myself busy with, is honestly what it is. But I will say, frankly, I'm surprised, because I don't know if I went back to when I started Misty Hills here on this server, that I would have ever thought, well, I know for certain, like if someone had asked me, okay, you're going to be in year 14 on your farm, are you still going to be buying equipment and adding buildings other than for physical storage or something? I would have said no, I'd be done long before that. Why did this not go? Okay, what is happening? I'm obviously getting the menu and I'm hitting the enter key, but it's not pouring into that. Why? I know yeah, that's the front one. Yeah, I don't have the limiter. I'm going to pull around. I don't understand. I've never had this happen before, so this is a new one. Because obviously if it wasn't under the pipe where it could fill, I wouldn't even get the dialogue. Like, I'm hitting R now and nothing's coming up. So clearly if I can hit R, it can drop in. Strange. I don't know if I just was not truly on the trigger properly, if there was some sort of a glitch there where I could trigger the menu, but then somehow the trigger was like, no, I've got nowhere to dump this, so I'm not going to dump it. But anyway, we've got that cleared up. So going back to what I was talking about is, yeah, I'm very pleasantly surprised that I'm sitting here in year 14 and I had to add a liquid fertilizer silo, and learning that I need to change the logo on my tanker to transport liquid fertilizer, because it's just not a liquid tanker the way it's configured in FSN. So it definitely keeps me engaged and interested, because there's a lot of thinking things through and farm management that goes on, you know, beyond what you would have in just base farming simulator, which is partially why I choose to spend my time. I'm going to hide that map. I don't need it. And it's probably not very entertaining for you to watch a trailer behind a map. And I also can't visually line it up. I'm then just waiting for the dialogue to pop up to start the unloading to know I'm in the right place. But the back trailer is now dumping out the back, so my change on the tipper settings did finally take, which is great. But yeah, it's just a lot of what makes FSN just make Farming Simulator a lot more enjoyable. Because I don't know, I can't say for certain that I would have racked up the hours I've done in Farming Simulator if I wasn't part of FSN. I certainly do play. I've played on single player, like, you know, when I'm in periods here on the farm where I'm just in the habit of the harvest. I'm pulling in. I'm like, why isn't it letting me put oats in here? Well, because you're on the wrong side of the silo, dummy. So get to the right place. There we go. So yeah, like when it's winter time and I have 3 days, I certainly have gone and played quite a bit in single player on different maps, obviously. And I think it's just that mix of the ability to play Farming Simulator here, what some would say very repetitively, and there's certainly people I understand would look at this and be like, this is boring. You're doing the same thing over and over. But for what I enjoy, which is deep simulation of anything that I'm engaged with, this is how running a farm would be. I'd be doing the same things. I'd be doing things repetitively. I'd be sitting down in the off season every year, figuring out what I'm going to do with my fields next year. And I believe FSN lets you do that even if I stripped away any of the added capabilities that FSN has, like the direct sell and the resource exchange, because those really are just bonuses on top of it. If I literally had nothing else in FSN other than the persistent servers, it would allow me a different experience than playing single player in the game does, because of the fact that time is moving in real time. Where in the game I have to fake that. I could get in and I could certainly adjust my time passage to, 120 times if I don't have any kind of a mod. and you know, make time fly very quickly and say, yep, time is passing, and then I could play for 14 years in a single player game. But there's just something different about executing those tasks and thinking through those issues as time is passing in real life, and it's passing in actuality, where I have to think of the game, of my FSN farm, in the same way that someone would need to think of a real farm. Like, harvest was going to happen today. Like, I have to make sure my schedule in my life allows me to harvest today, where in single player, I harvest when I have time to play, which is why it's okay on the single player side that I only play once every 9 days or so. I might get in for a couple days in the winter. And I'm honestly doing multiple things in single player. I mean, right now in FS19, I've kind of cleared everything out because my assumption was I'm going to spend all of my time once maps start coming out doing the same thing, but in FS22. And again, that may bear out to be inaccurate unless things change, because I'm still waiting for any mods that would make it enjoyable for me to do that. We still don't have a good GPS. Someone had posted something about the vehicle add-on mod that has GPS capability, but it's truly trash capability. So it's not something I would use. It's nothing like guidance steering that we had, that I'm using here in FSN, because I have it on FS19. But if I'm really being realistic about the impact of the enjoyment of the game, again, playing FSN and being forced in this community to not have a lot of automation mods available to me. So I can't use workers. I can't use course play. So all of that has made my need, and I say that in quotes, because it's truly not a need, it's a want, in FS22 to be pretty minimal. I mean, if I can get if I can get guidance steering re-implemented in FS22, FS22 would be playable for me, because in essence it's the same experience I have here, minus I don't have a lot of equipment choices, but I'm struggling less with that than with the fact that harvesting fields of this size, for example, in FS22, if I owned, say, half the map in Elm Creek, which I think is what I would need to do to have the same amount of acreage that I have on this map right now, I would not enjoy doing that currently in FS22 because of the fact that I'd have to be driving everything manually. And that is just more difficult. And it frankly gets more frustrating because when I'm spending all this time, I mean, I just explained I've spent 9 hours, between 9 and 10 hours doing this oat harvest here on this farm. Doing that with GPS it's just vastly different than doing that with manual driving, because frankly, I would be spending more than 9 or 10 hours. It's doing it again. I don't know, it's just something with the angle I'm coming in here. So I'm going to have to swing around one more time. I think I had come in with a truck in between. Again, I've been talking, so I don't know that I'm remembering quite accurately, but I think I had brought a truck in and filled it both times without any hiccup. But I think I just might need to get a little straighter like this in there. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. The E key's next to the R key. I had my finger in the wrong place. But without GPS, the reality is I'm overlapping rows. So the harvesting I did, for example, there's literally no overlap if you're using GPS. Like you're just one right next to the other. So I will literally take the fewest amount of passes across that field that I possibly can because of GPS. I would be taking more passes manually driving, aside from the fact that I'm just going slower because I'm manually driving, because inevitably I'm going to have a situation where I float a little bit and then I suddenly realize, oh, I'm leaving some crop. Well, now I got to slow down, I got to back up, I got to fix that. And, it takes me 30 seconds, a minute to do that. And you multiply that across all the times that happens and all the extra passes you're making, and over a 9-10 hour harvest that I had here, that could easily become an additional hour or two without a whole lot of effort, simply because I don't have guidance steering available. So to me right now, that's the thing that's keeping me from making FS22 my permanent experience in Farming Simulator in any way. And I guess permanent is still different, because I don't know that I would move things in FSN without equipment mods as well, because while the equipment's okay in single player, there's a lot of things we use here that I know are not part of base game, like these trailers, for example, that I would struggle not having if I move this farm over to something else. Because once again, I'm not really looking at, in my head mentally, that, oh, when I move to an FS22 server, that I'm not on Misty Hills anymore. I'm on Misty Hills. I mean, we've just decided to relocate to a different farming community, but that also means that my style of play, the equipment I've gotten to know and love, I'd like to keep using that equipment. Just like a farmer, again, if they decided to move from Iowa to Pennsylvania, they're not suddenly going to get rid of all their equipment and say, hey, I'm going to make do with a bunch of things I've never had before. It just isn't the reality, which comes back full circle around to a deep sim, and how I like to play my sims is like I like it to be realistic for me. And when you like certain equipment, you're going to like certain equipment. It doesn't matter where you live. You don't suddenly decide, I don't like that equipment anymore. You're always going to think back with nostalgia to, gee, I wish I had that Mack truck with the 80,000 liter trailers, because that was great. And these are all the reasons that what I have right now is not up to that. Right now, that's what I'm feeling with the equipment as well, is I'm dealing with it because I know mods are coming, and I want to enjoy the new game to some degree, but I'm just not enjoying it because I'm literally waiting for the things that I want and enjoy here to show up, and also knowing that they may not, which is also disappointing, and what gives the negative feelings about the game is, again, why should I have to wait for those things to reappear? Like, why is that the model for Farming Simulator? So, I don't want to turn every episode now into the same discussion about the shortcomings of FS22, so I'm not going to go down that path, but all of that was kind of related to just how FSN is just incredibly enjoyable because of how it's structured, and that the main piece to me, if I'm looking at a root cause, it's the persistent servers, and the fact that I need to think about this farm in real time, where any other farm I play in Farming Simulator, I don't have that same requirement made upon me. And that is the difference between FSN and anything else. I mean, frankly, anything else. because even having a multiplayer server, I'm assuming, I suppose, you could set your server up if you had a server with Nitrado directly, and you could set it up to run in real time as well. So I suppose you could do that, but if you have someone else running things for you, the likelihood is they're firing that server up, and when you guys are playing, and then when you're not playing, it's not operating and time's not passing and so forth. So it's kind of waiting for people to get there. So at least that's kind of what I've heard. And other people who talk about why they're so happy that when they find FSN is that other multiplayer experiences just aren't the same, and a big part they bring up is the lack of the persistent servers. I've got to figure out what is going on here. I have honestly never had this issue, and again, 14 years of working this farm, and granted I didn't have this silo up here that whole time, but in a long time of having to do this and cycle around to get the back trailer to work. So I'm just going to have to try to remember to swing wider like this and come in straight instead of angled when I come back here, because that's all I can think of is it's something related to that. So I want to at least test that so I understand, and then I can start to figure out what I need to do differently. Because if I do think back, yes, normally I'm driving in and I'm going ahead and coming in more straight for whatever reason. Just today I've fallen into the habit of coming in diagonally, but that isn't normally what I will have done. So maybe I just never stumbled upon the problem before, but right now my body's in muscle memory, and it literally drives that truck in the same time or the same way, and I'm having the same problem over and over. So we'll see what we get when we head back for the next load. And I'm not sure. I think I still have 500,000 or so left in that silo, so I've got a lot of loads left yet, 5 or 6 at a minimum. So kind of continuing, and I guess probably wrapping up the discussion on the FSN piece is all the extra changes then are just gravy on top of the fact that I've got something I need to think about in real time that I've run here for 14 in-game years, but 6 months in real life that makes me feel like for the last 6 months I've been running a farm to some degree. I mean, again, I'm not delusional enough to be like, ooh, I've been a farmer for 6 months. I mean, obviously I understand I'm playing a game and pretending I'm a farmer in a sim. I'm not that warped that I'm thinking, oh, I'm a farmer and I'm doing everything a farmer does, and I'm a farmer. But it gets me as close as I can, which is what a sim is supposed to do when done well, to doing that, because of some basic tenets, which once again is alright, and this worked fine now that I came in straighter. So yeah, I think it's just something to do with me being diagonal. So maybe if I moved forward and back a little bit, I'd trigger it, but it's not really worth trying to figure out now unless I have it happen again. Maybe I'll move around a bit, but I think I did that the first time and it just wasn't working. So because certainly I guess there's other pieces if I think about this as I'm talking it through. If FSN had no rules on what was on a server, and I was able to do a lot of automation and I could throw helpers in and so forth, yeah, that would change it to some degree, because then the realism of feeling like I'm running this farm does change. So, I do think that intentional decision of we're creating this community and we're doing it in a way that requires you as a farming manager to do the work, and you can contract that to someone else who does the work, but either way, you're managing your farm, if nothing else, and you can't take shortcuts by setting up course play or setting up helpers, which would really be the two main ways you do it. And obviously all the other things that you're not able to do that in essence you could game the system with adding money in, or even in this case, being able to change the time. Like obviously, in a single player game, I can hit my 7 and 8 key and change my time speed. I don't have that option here. So if I am waiting for my harvest, I can't suddenly say, hey, it's Sunday today and I want to harvest my cotton and I think it's going to be ready tomorrow, so let me speed the game up to 120, and now I'm done with oats. Let's get to harvesting the cotton. I got to wait till tomorrow, and if my cotton's ready, I can do it. And if my cotton's not ready, I can't say, well, I'm going to fast forward through this day again, which is what I'm doing right now on FS22 in single player, and frankly what I did on FS19 in single player. But just those basic decisions create a dynamic that's, I will argue, is unique to Farming Simulator in all regards, anywhere. And I think that's one of the points that FSN brings up in their own material as they talk about it, is, you're just going to find a completely different multiplayer experience here than you will anywhere else. It's just, the only difference there is they're suggesting that in totality with everything else that's offered because of the website integration and so forth. I'm simply saying if you take away the website entirely and it didn't exist, there's still enough differentiation in what FSN is doing that for someone who wants to just do what I'm doing here and has been happy to do it for 6 months, and I'm not in any way thinking I'm not going to continue to be happy for however long, those things alone are enough to make this incredibly enjoyable. And I don't know what other example would be needed other than the fact that, you've seen this year. I've spent, upwards of 20 hours now between the planting and the harvesting, working on this farm, playing this sim because of this. Would I be doing that in single player? No. And the only thing I can put my finger on as to why not is what I just shared with you, because it just changes the physical feeling I have about the game, because of those things and how this is set up and what we're quote forced unquote to do here. Because again, that is really not the right term, because we do so willingly. We know what we're getting into, and nobody's going to sign up for that if they're not wanting that. And I mean, they make that very clear as you're waiting in whitelist and so forth. Like, this is what the community is. This is what you'll be doing if you're operating the farm. If that's not what you're looking for, then keep looking, because this isn't the place for you, because you're going to be miserable. And those are the people that then don't hang out and hang on. But so, alright, well, at this point we are getting very close, so I may just continue. Well, I don't know. There's no point in continuing, I guess, and so I'll probably cut to once I'm done, and as I'm putting out the contract and getting things out there, I'll I'll jump back in, but I think I've said my piece. But yeah, because I've got 2 more trucks here to get things done after this one, so it's still going to be another 5-10 minutes before this is done. So see you in a bit. So I'm heading back to the farm here to get everything cleaned up. I've got a little bit of a traffic jam based on the fact that I knocked that corn header out of place when I was pulling out of here last night going to do the harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up, put it where it needs to be. I'd driven the truck over, getting ready to clean that up, refuel, repair, put it away, and then realized the road's blocked. So let me go ahead and get this put away where it was. Well, actually, I'll probably put it away. Might regret this, but I'm having an idea here. I'm going to see if it'll fit between the posts of the shed, which I think it will. Because then I can, well, now I'm dragging that trailer with me. I just can't win. Alright, so now let me back this up. Oh, it's going to tip that over, won't it? That would really stink. Alright, nope. It was ugly, but with FSN physics, it worked. Oh goodness. Why am I... Okay, what am I hooked on? I'm not really touching it, but it's acting as if I am. Because now that's in the driveway more than I need. Anyway, I'll have to reposition some stuff a little bit, but... No, what that gives me is I can then pull around and actually get the header over along the edge as I need it, and I'm not having to steer around the other header, was what I was doing. So I'll be able to go in, repair and refuel, and I'm thinking the bill's going to be pretty hefty after this harvest for getting all this done. So my typical process again, I'll get in my refuel trigger, I'll start refueling. In the interim, I run over here and I start cleaning. And we'll get the gas bill in a bit, but usually by then I can have a good amount of cleaning done. There's a lot of dirt on here. You can see that screen has taken a while. I usually like to go a little bit longer because there's always that like little bit of sheen that isn't quite fully gone until you're done. So if I look at that arm on the trailer here, like even though the header looks clean, I can see there's still little bits of dirt on the arm fading away slowly. So that's why I usually go a little bit longer. Alright, so finally fueling is done. 1,300 in fuel. Now, harvester's pretty big, so that's to be expected. It was basically down to less than a quarter tank. I don't think I went too far forward, but we'll find out. So, 432 to repair the header. 2159 to repair the harvester. Alright, so it's like $4,000 between everything, repair and refuel, to get the harvester back to tip-top shape. I will say, when I had started farming here, yeah, $4,000 would be, whoa, gotta be really careful, but it's nice to not really have to worry about it and just be like, yep, that's just what it costs. But that's why I took that header away, because otherwise I'd be back in that position where I was angling out everything with the harvester. Yeah, I'll leave it connected, because it's not like I'm planning on doing soybeans or something. And now we'll, not soybeans, sunflowers or corn. where I need to do something different. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my cables here so I can disconnect this, because at this point I'm going to go fix my cotton bale trailer. Although, well, I'm doing it, so I might as well just do it. I was going to say I'm going to need it with the cotton harvest, and then it'll be moved, and then I can just put it where it needs to go. But invariably, just like anything, it's just nice to keep things tidy so that you don't have what happened to me the other day that caused this mess. I pulled up against a corn header and didn't realize it was right in front of me, and then suddenly it created a mess pulling out. So that way I don't have another unexpected problem as I put this trailer away or something, for example. But at least this way I can tuck things up nicely, because I'm still trying to, other than the root crop harvester and cotton harvester that are just large and would be a challenge, and again don't move that often, so they work pretty well where they're at. I still would like to make this the main storage area. Alright, so we've got about half here, so let's do the same thing. And half empty on gas is what I meant by half. So yeah, only 237, so you can see how much more fuel obviously the harvester's taking than the truck is. I'm hoping this truck engine's not that loud that it's irritating. It's pretty loud in my ears, but I found that usually the recording volume is a little bit less. Alright, so we've got, again, the mud flaps are kind of what I look at here to tell me if I've got a clean trailer or not. So I think we're good. And then again, this one, I guess it is actually dirty this time, because if I look at the tires, they're definitely not nice and shiny black like they're getting now. Because yeah, I was going to say the back trailer, just for some reason, it's like it just doesn't get dirty, but it did a little bit this time finally. Alright. And not nearly as much repair work needed, and again I'm going to have to pull this through because I can't get all three items into the repair trigger at the same time. 282, 156. So again, the truck's significantly less expensive. And get the pup trailer done. $68. So we've got everything in tip-top shape, maintained, and ready to go, because especially now that I've gotten the oats over to the custom silo, like, I am done with this truck until perhaps in the winter, where I may make a few supply runs to top up the supply silos. But we're talking 3 or 4 days from now is likely going to be when I would do that. So yeah, this way I can tuck this in here. I can leave the cotton bale trailer there. And then on the other side of the shed, I can put the seed tender and the tanker. So just basically park the tanker here, and then I've got most of the equipment in nice order lined up here. So I can probably get the harvester and the root crop in here. And maybe I'll do that one day just to kind of clean things up. But alright, so we're done here on the server. I just need to go issue the contract for my oats. So I'm gonna head out of here. Alright, so back here on the server, or on the website, and once again at this point it will have been long enough that I'm gonna have to re-log in, so I'm not gonna even waste time and have it give me the error, because I've spent 45 minutes moving crops, so it definitely times out before that. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to the business, And we have 948,966. So I need to go to crop sales, select oats, send to warehouse, and the max you can do is 500,000 in one contract. So I need to do this in 2 contracts. So I'm going to do oat, send to warehouse, and then this one will be 448,966. All right, and that will once again generate a couple contracts. So if you go to the contract center, check customs exports. So these are all exports, and we'll see this bar start to fill in. It's actually not too bad, so maybe this will get picked up and run, but there we go. So we've got 2, so the 500,000 oat and the 448,966 oat in the silo. So someone will hopefully pick that up, and once they have it, looks like we've got a couple people. All right, so Sears has got his poppies out. So this is off of 41 and 42. So you got about 600,000 in poppies off of that. So, and poppies are a high yielding crop. So I don't normally always just look. It's just as I was scrolling up, I saw Hilly Seneca. It caught my eye. So I didn't know what someone else had out there. But at this point, we've got what we have, what we're able to do, and then I'll just check back periodically throughout the days, because hopefully, given that today's actually Sunday in the real world, someone will snag these, especially since there aren't that many, because there's, in certain seasons, there's a lot more than this. But if people are looking for work, and given that it's a weekend, this may get handled pretty quickly, and then I can go ahead and throw it out on the resource exchange. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and do that for likely just 725, because I usually just kind of round it to that, because that's what it makes sense. So I just place the order is what I'll be doing. I've shown that in other videos before. So just going to check, because sometimes the price can fluctuate. Now it's still 733, 831. So yeah, if I do 725, if you just stay within 10%, usually, at least, you're getting close to top dollar, and it's not taking forever to go. So, but yeah, we still got the 340,000. Yeah, I had moved money into the banks because I had done the transfer this morning, so I had moved basically 230,000 into the bank once I got things over here. They're meta transactions. So I'm looking for kind of what the sales is going. So 35,000, 20,000, 35,000, 20,000. Just seems to kind of be alternating. So several sales of 35,000. I think this was when my last liter of poppy sold. It was sometime yesterday, yeah. Yep. So my poppy's fully sold, and then, obviously I've got my trucks moving around too. But so I had transferred 218,000 earlier this morning, so as you could see then, I basically had 650,000 in here again, and so I'll be able to do likely 2 more, because by the time those 350,000 sell, it's actually easy math to some degree, because it's 10 times this, so I'm going to get another $192,500 if I can get all that crop to sell, and that'll get me up to 630 again, which will let me cover 218 twice. So over the next 2 weeks, I'll then move that 218 over every Sunday, more than likely, and definitely then be over, you know, at that point, just that will get me over 4 million in what I have in the bank. And that doesn't count the oats that we're now moving over to the warehouse, and we'll be going through the same process. So that wraps things up for today right now. I will see you next time.